Hello.
Hi, Rabbi.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So you're the only one on Zoom for the annual meeting. Were you able to hear okay?
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. It seemed like it went really well. Everyone seemed like they were pretty happy at the end.
Well, got to have a good board. People, at least people on the board this year go to events.
Yes, right.
That doesn't always happen at all. Well, it's a little muggy out.
Yeah, it was pretty muggy out yesterday too, I'll tell you.
Well, next Monday will be beautiful. I mean, Tuesday, July 4th, but the other two, Saturday and Sunday, look like rain some of the time. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I just put in some more beets in our garden. So I'm kind of glad for the rain.
I have beets every day.
Yeah?
Yep.
Nice.
It started with the borscht when one of my old members here made it. Yeah. I just came, it's so hard to watch people that are old. I just came from someone's house. Woman has dementia for like the last 10 years. She's talking about things that happened like 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And the husband's in bad shape. Last 2 weeks of life, weak. Then tell you, sometimes not so great to be that old,
Yeah, that's what it's weird. I'm seeing that because my grandparents are both 91 and, Scott's dad is 91 and they're not as happy as I've seen them in the past. They're dissatisfied with what they can and can't do, and they have a hard time of finding the things to be happy about, if that makes sense.
My father-in-law's 99 and a half.
Is he happy?
I don't know how happy he is, but he's getting by every day.
Yeah, and that's the weird thing about my grandparents is like my grandmother was on death's doorstep, and then they got her into the hospital and then into a nursing home because she needs everyday care, right? Someone to really take care of her. And my grandfather was trying to do it, but it made him very sick. And so they went into the nursing home together. And now he's so unhappy. He's so unhappy being there. And he's, constantly making comments about, well, I'm just sitting here waiting to die anyways, and stuff like that. And it's not the man that I know as grandpa. It's weird to see him have such a different mindset and for no one to be able to talk to him about something and pull him out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, not easy. Not easy being in nursing homes.
No.
I think my father-in-law is going to be going home next week from the nursing home after 3 months there.
Oh, really?
They don't really take such good care of you, no matter what kind of nursing home you're at, it seems.
Yeah.
From what I understand. From what Debbie told me, I thought there'd be better care over there, but it seems like then when they get around to do things, they do. If not, they don't.
Right. And if they don't, I didn't notice that he peed his pants today and he may have sat in it all
like that. Yeah.
So, and that's the thing that I think is like hitting him hard. But my grandmother, on the other hand, I don't know if because she was so sick and in the hospital for such a long time and now she's in the nursing home, if it's somehow given her like a new outlook on life, because she seems a lot more happy and she's willing to like go out to the play cards and the events and stuff. Yeah.
Hi, this is a ping pong ball.
It is.
You have a ping pong set?
Noodle.
Scott's been working with a 3D printer and he's building a ping pong shooter for William. So
Oh. We used to
it's
have
still
one of my We had one in my basement. It was so nice.
Oh yeah, nice.
What's this? What's this?
There you go. So, yeah. So it's hard. It's got to be hard to visit people, and I mean, it's easy to listen, but it's hard to kind of give them that advice or boost of like, hey, hang in there. So can you guys please go on the other end now? Listen, I need you to go on the other. Thank
There's
you.
animals lurking there too.
Yeah, got the dogs here. So
You have the air on? It's so muggy. I put it on for the first time.
yeah, we have the ductless air conditioning in the house, so it usually runs it for a certain period of time. Yes. Come say hi.
Hey, Marion, how you doing there?
Are you having a good day?
You running around the house?
What did you have for dinner? What'd you eat?
Pizza.
Pizza, yeah. Did mommy make you pizza?
Homemade?
Yeah. All right. We'll get your papa. Say bye-bye.
She likes
Say bye.
pizza.
She does. Go on. It's made from I use our sourdough starter to make it. So the crust tastes very familiar like the bread. So they love it. They're like, oh yeah, this is bread. This is great. Go on.
Is that going to be able to fix the lines that go through your screen?
I don't know. That's something that Scott's continuously trying to work on and see if we can figure out a solution for. Because for all of the meetings, like work meetings and classes and stuff, it's always happening. Unfortunately.
Hey, Arlene, welcome. We're about to start. Waiting for more people. Yeah, Sharon and Marcy won't be here tonight.
All right.
They're busy with big plans. Okay, so we're gonna be on the top of 182 tonight about the blessing before the Shema. We do this all the time at our services. It's Ahava Rabbah. And it's called Ahava Rabbah. It's like with abundant love. Ahava, love. Rabbah is a lot of love. The Gemara discusses a ruling about the second blessing. It relates to the blessing over the Torah. Every day we say it before we read from the Torah. So Rabbi Judah said, name of Shmuel, the law, the person who rises in the morning and study Torah is as follows. If you're not said the Shema, the blessing in the morning, you could say the Birkat Torah. But once you said the Shema with the blessings, you need not say the Birkat Torah since you'd already fulfilled this requirement with the blessing of Ahava Rabbah. Because once you said that before the Shema, that blessing, because the blessing contains the concepts of the blessing of the Torah, it says, instill in your hearts to learn, to teach, safeguard, and to perform, and fulfill all the words in the teaching of the Torah. As you taught down the decrees of life, it can therefore serve as the Birkat Torah. So that prayer, once you say it, it will take care of the other one. So, having mentioned this, the Gemara cites opinions to which the subjects of Torah study require this blessing. Rabbi Huna said to write the written Torah, a person must say the Birkat Torah, but to study Midrash, in other words, the different books of Midrash, that teaches that laws are derived from the verse, they are primarily halakhic works. This Midrash should not be confused with the various collection of Aggadah writings known as the Midrash. So this is a separate type of, it's not the exact same thing as the other one. So what does nighttime correspond to? God's aspect of strict judgment. Daytime is compassion. These aspects must be balanced. Just as it's not possible the world exists without judgment, 2, the world can't function without compassion. So we need judgment in the world, we need balance, and we need compassion in the world. Second opinion on 183. Rav Elazar said, whenever one wants to study the Torah or to study the Midrash, you should say the Birkat Torah. But to study Mishnah, it's not necessary. Why? Because it says Mishnah is part of oral law, right? We know it's part of the Talmud. According to this, it's not necessary to say Birkat Torah before studying oral law. Midrash teaches laws derived from the written Torah. Therefore, it has the status of the actual written Torah. So, but that's one opinion. The third opinion says, even to study Mishnah, it's necessary to say the Birkat Torah. Study Talmud, you don't need to. So a person must say this blessing before the oral Torah as well. Nevertheless, they can study Talmud, which explains the Mishnah, without reciting. So that's one opinion. So there's the last opinion. Rava said, even to study Talmud, it's necessary to Birkat Torah. Talmud explains that the reasoning of this Mishnah resolves contradictions between various Mishnahs and interprets and corrects the text of the Mishnah. Therefore, the very essence of Torah, since only through a knowledge of Talmud can halakhic rulings be reached. Halakha can be proven from that which Rabbi Barasi said. Many times I stood before Rav to learn a chapter in the Sifra, that's the Midrash. Rav would arise and wash his hands and recite the Birkat Torah. Then he would teach us our chapter. We see then that Birkat Torah must be said even before studying Talmud. Because in Rav's academies, they would explore the reasoning of the teachings and resolve the contradictions between the various rulings. The sort of analysis falls under Talmud. Since Rav said a blessing before Sifra, we see that a blessing is required before the study of the Talmud. Well, just in case you're not sure, just say the blessing.
That's what I was going to say. Well, just to be on the safe side, it doesn't hurt to say the blessing.
I don't think it ever hurts to say an extra blessing. Yeah.
Right.
Well, unless it's a blessing levatala, you're saying something and you're not really doing anything with it, and it's a wasted blessing. But I think whenever you're not sure, you say a blessing. What's the worst thing that could happen? You bless before you study. But what blessing is said then? Judah said in the name of Shmuel, blessed are you, God, who has sanctified us with his commandments and has commanded us to engross ourselves in words of Torah. So this is going to be an insight B here. Does anyone want to read this insight B? It's pretty long.
I can read it.
Okay, we'll start insight, toiling in Torah.
Insight B, toiling in Torah and delighting in the toil. The first blessing of the mitzvah of Torah study makes no mention of study. The blessing, according to Ashkenazic custom, following the reading of our text of the Gemara, praises Hashem for commanding us to engross ourselves in words of Torah. The question is thus raised, why not say to study Torah, which would be the more natural form? Some commentators see the word choice as a reflection of what Torah study is really meant to be. Not a laid-back scholarly endeavor to be pursued amid tranquility and leisure, but rather a laborious pursuit involving a lifelong investment of toil and sacrifice, of determined effort to conquer the vast sea of divine knowledge contained within the Torah's intellectual kingdom. There is no other way to succeed in Torah study, and thus, if Hashem has commanded us to learn the Torah, he has perforce commanded us to engross ourselves in its enchanted world of spiritual enlightenment. For good reason, because the purpose of Torah study is not merely to absorb its teachings and know its laws, it is to gain access to the holy core of the Torah, to forge a most intimate connection between our souls and the Torah's heavenly source, so that the divine presence may descend and find a suitable resting place in our sanctified beings. To fall short of this goal is to deplore the Shekinah of a residence on earth, and ultimately, as tragically happened at the end of the temple era, to drive the Shekinah out of its last earthly bastion, the base Hamekodash, and leave it exposed to the marauding enemy forces and the consuming fire of their torches. The altar of Kelm sees in the phrase Basuk in words of Torah, as opposed to Limad Torah, a hint of the idea that one must treat his career in Torah study like a business. Just as the business owner does not take time off from his work or come late to open his store if he can help it, so must a Jew skip all or part of his usual session of Torah study only in the most pressing circumstances. And just as the owner of a business never stops thinking about what he can do to expand his reach and increase his profits, so must a Jew always search for ideas, role models, and strategies that can lead him to maximize his attainments in Torah study. Another question is asked about the second blessing, or about the second part of the first blessing, which begins with a prayer. Now sweeten the words of your Torah in our mouths. We recite no parallel prayer regarding any other mitzvah. What is behind this prayer in regard to Torah study? The answer to this question is that the mitzvah of Torah study is indeed unique in that the essential obligation is not merely to do the required act, but also to enjoy the process, to allow oneself to be uplifted by the spiritual delight inherent in Torah study. The enjoyment is so much a part of the mitzvah that if someone learns Torah for the enjoyment, he is considered to be learning lishma, for the mitzvah's sake, as long as he is learning for the mitzvah as well. An allusion to this idea can be found in Pirkei Avos 1:4, and drink their words with thirst. That is, enjoy your learning as much as the dry palate of a thirsty person enjoys a long-awaited drink of refreshingly cold water. In this sense, the mitzvah of Torah study is different from other mitzvos. With other mitzvos, the ideal is that one would want to enjoy the forbidden fruit, if not for the commandment against doing so. For example, the sages teach in Torah's Kohayim that one should not say, I cannot stand the taste of pig's meat. One should rather say, I would love to sample the flavor of pig's meat, but what shall I do? Hashem has prohibited it. According to that pattern, one might have thought to say, I find learning Torah to be dull and unpleasant, but I will do it anyway because the Hashem has commanded it. The truth, however, is just the opposite. A Jew is expected to train himself to feel as if Torah study is the highlight of his life. And that is why the blessings on Torah study include a prayer that one may experience the sweetness of the Torah, for there is no other way to fulfill the mitzvah properly. In the same vein, some authorities appear to consider at least one of the blessings on the Torah as belonging to the category of Berchos HaNehainen, the blessings for pleasure, such as those recited before eating. And see Kilyos Yaakov Barachos 22 for a lengthy discussion of the matter.
Well, I think, Darlene, what you just read, I think Birchot, the category of Birchot and Nehenin, we're talking about the blessings for pleasure, because how much more pleasure can we get than studying together, really?
Right. But it's also, Rabbi, I think, how we should look at life.
Yeah.
And you talk to people, and sometimes even when they say something positive, they say it in a negative way.
Yeah.
And I know that I can do that, but I really try to state things positively. So how many times do you ask someone how their vacation was and they say, oh, it's a great vacation, but
Yeah.
why can't it just be a great vacation?
Mhm.
So as I read this, I said, this is how we should lead our lives.
Yeah. I was swimming with a woman today and she's always smiling. So I said, "Were you always like this your whole life? You always wake up smiling, and it's just nice to see someone that's smiling." I see very few people. I see a lot of people with MS and Parkinson's, but this woman is like always smiling, and she looks at life so positive. And she's not Jewish; she studies Christian stuff, but it's just, I mean, I think we have a great gift that we have study together, and my rabbi's lectures from Knoxville on Sunday night. It's just so wonderful to have 70 people together, and it's just wonderful. Even though it's just studying the prophets, but it's the spin that you put on there that makes it so nice. I think group study is definitely in that category of Nehen, and the blessing, the pleasure. I mean, eating. What can I tell you today? I'll give you an example today. You could say, "Oh, we say a blessing and then we eat," but here's the case. I had something today that had gluten in it. I didn't know. I had some non-gluten. Here's the danger, Arlene, with going out to eat. I know within a half hour if it's gluten.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, even though if I blessed before I ate the meal, not so good results after having that. So
Did it taste good when you ate it?
no, it tasted good, but the fact is that I have a lot of friends that won't eat out because of that, because they're afraid you're going to get food that's contaminated. Not everyone knows how to check all the time. So,
Yeah.
no, believe me, it's delicious, but the problem is, I mean, afterwards there's a problem.
I believe along the same lines as Arlene. I think that I grew up watching movies like Pollyanna, and they always said, you look for the good in people, or you look for the good in things, and then you find it and you see it. There's always the bad,
Right.
but there's always usually a situation that goes not so well. And I'm the person who tries to say, well, it's great that this happened, or at least we had 15 minutes of not rain or something like that, because
And then
I think
don't you get the
people-
looks?
yeah, like what a Fruit Loop she is.
Yeah,
But
right.
but part of me has to say that too, because I don't want to be drawn down with
Right.
other people. And when I got out of college, I worked with a lady and everything always had like this, humdrum, or let's talk about this person, but blah 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 blah, and it was very gossipy. But I had a hard time coming away from working with her and not just feeling like, I'm in a dark cloud and I don't know why.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the things that just kind of became a practice of always like trying to find the silver lining or the good in something, because I'm still here and breathing, and I can be happy about that. There's another minute of my life.
Well, let me how you would find the lining in this. Before class, I went over to visit someone has like 2 weeks to live. The wife's got dementia. You're talking about things that happened 40 and 50 years ago.
Hey, but those might be the happy memories for her, right? So.
Oh yeah, the happy memory. But it's weird to talk about parents that are alive when they've been dead for 50 years.
Right. But that's
Whether
where
you
the
could
memory
have the
goes.
conversation of remembering those people, right? If those are
Yeah.
happy thoughts, you say,
Right.
Bob is a good guy, he always
Yep.
made me laugh, and
Yeah.
I find even for oneself, even though they might not be there and you're kind of under this misnomer that they might still be alive, it's a
Yeah.
good opportunity to remember the good person that they were,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think in this world, we too often think it's supposed to be, I don't think we understand this world. Now I say that, here's my interpretation of the world. The world is a good place. Life is a good thing, but things happen. And we shouldn't let what happens influence too much how we are. So somebody dies. It's the natural course of life, and you feel bad, but it shouldn't ruin the rest of your life, especially if you believe that that person's going to go to heaven and that person's life is maybe just beginning. So it's sad and it's painful, but that doesn't mean that our rest of our lives shouldn't go on,
Yeah, I agree.
you know? And
Same with
but-
being hurt by somebody else, right? If we've
Right.
been hurt by someone, you shouldn't let that interaction with that particular person dissuade you from having similar interactions with others. You
Right.
know, keep going, and you should have a more positive outlook, hoping to go down that road, I think.
I think it's okay to be hurt. In fact, it's natural to be hurt. If someone called you whatever, it could be hurtful, but then you have to think of, I think you have to think of two things. Am I that way and should I change? Or, well, that's that person's opinion.
Right.
And
right.
if you do it enough times, it gets maybe not easy, but I just think life is so good, and I'm so happy to have the life I have. Now I recognize some people, this is it's a tale of two sides. There are some people who are not happy.
Right.
But I also believe that to some degree, people who are not happy make their own path. Maybe not all of them could be happy, but probably a good portion of them, if they had a better outlook, there'd be a better outcome.
Yep, I'd like to believe that.
And that's what I think too. If they had a better outlook, it wouldn't keep them from being hurt ever, but they wouldn't stay hurt. Right. They stay in that.
They'd be resilient.
Yeah.
They'd be resilient. They'd come back. Just because they can't get the job they want, or because they can't find a job today, doesn't mean they shouldn't go out and look tomorrow. And I've been pretty lucky, so I haven't had to face that. But I've thought about it a lot especially when I was working, that if I needed a job, I would take any job to have a job.
Mhm.
I might not stay in that job. Well, maybe not any job, but I'd wash dishes, I'd clean houses, I would do some dirty jobs, if I had to, until I could get something better. I wouldn't say, I'm just not going to work. What use is it? Oh, it only pays $20 an hour. Who wants that job? I wouldn't do that.
Mhm.
I know I wouldn't do it.
Well, even Enoch, the sandler, he was making sandals, and he was able to merge God's letters of the name together, and he ascended to heaven. So even you can bring down the divine in the simplest of tasks. So as you said before, even cleaning houses, it depends where your mind's at, Arlene, right?
Right.
You can be working at a drugstore, or what I saw today, people, supermarkets or whatever.
Right.
So find a way to be nice to people,
Yeah.
I see many people are pretty angry all the time at a pharmacy.
Yeah.
You go to the pharmacist and you start yelling, "What happened to the prescription? What happened? Why is it expensive?" They go through it. I mean,
So a lot of people just jump right to anger. It's almost like they can't wait. And I've seen it where they don't even start at a civil tone. They just start right in.
Yeah.
Bang,
Like
bang,
they're
bang,
holding
bang.
on to waiting and waiting
They
for the
just
reason.
can't wait. Can't wait, And
Mhm.
that's just not my thing, But I just think we don't, in my view, we don't have the right, some people do not have the right look on life.
Mm.
Life was not made to be easy.
Right.
Well, I hope we
It
all
was
get,
made to be good.
I hope we all get to taste the sweetness of study and work together. Study, always sweet when you're studying with the right people, the right text. And you can make any work situation sweet if you have the right mindset going into it. What did Bernie, a blessed memory, I hate to say a blessed memory, but now
Yeah,
he says it all has to do with the Kabbalah. I mean,
Right.
even in the dental chair with Bernie, even though it was going in for things with the cavity, he was just upbeat about everything, you know,
Yeah.
talking and distracting me from what was coming, what was about to come.
well, I think he's another example. I don't know that he was poor, but I don't think his family had a lot when he grew up.
No, growing up.
So growing up, he came from a family that didn't have a lot of extra money. And look what he became through his efforts. You know, he could have become a bum too, you know, and
That's true.
I don't
You
know.
know-
I wish I knew what made people go to which path, you know, because it's fascinating to me.
I just think that everyone has in them, sort of like, what do they say? The evil inclination. Everyone, like today, I could have just said, you know what? I didn't feel like going visiting someone with dementia. What am I gonna do? Deal with different stuff, talking about stuff that I can't relate to? I mean, I could have said, hey, I just didn't want to deal with someone that has 2 weeks to live. But you know what? What happens if someone died tomorrow? I mean, I didn't visit them.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, it's not easy visiting someone like that, but you know what? If something happens tomorrow, there's no guarantee when someone says you have 2 weeks to live. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the truth, right? I mean,
Right.
that's a guesstimate, right? So if I put it off till tomorrow, then you know what? I want to rest before the classes tonight. I mean, I could have easily said that, but I don't like to put off these things. If I said I'm coming on a Tuesday afternoon, no matter how busy I'm on a Tuesday afternoon, I'm gonna find time to do it, right?
Yeah, sure. It's funny because Carol and I have really opposite ways to handle things. She will do anything she can to avoid going to a funeral. She just doesn't
All right.
like them. She did go to my niece's, but she was glad it was over. But
Oh,
she just says, well, you know, they're gone, you know. And I say, but you know, Carol, the parents or the spouse, it's a good deed to go and see them and to acknowledge their loss and to say something nice, and they appreciate that and they remember that. But we're just different that way, you know. So I think it's a mitzvah to go to the funeral of someone you know, and bring your condolences to the family.
It is. You know what? One of the things that we have in our religion that's so comforting the bereaved is one of the great things that we can do. Seriously, one
I
of the
believe
great things you can do is to comfort someone that, I don't care if the parent's 108 years old, but it's still one of our commandments is to try to be there
Yep.
for someone losing someone. And
You
it's
know-
not easy. As Carol pointed out, it's not easy for some people to do.
Right.
Some people have a difficult time dealing. I had a difficult
Yeah.
time. If you told me years ago I'd be a rabbi having to do funerals, I had a hard time when I was 16 years old. One of my best friend's mother died, and the rabbi said, "You're going to the shiva." I said, "What am I going to do with the shiva?" He says, "Well, you'll find something to say to Neil."
Right.
His mother died from breast cancer when he was 16, and I said, "What? How am I going to deal with it?" You know.
And I don't hold it against Carol. It's just an example of different views and different ways of handling things. You know, my niece recently passed away, and
Right.
you know, I think she's in a much better place. Her life was not the best. I think it was a combination of her genes. You know, she was adopted, and
She was adopted? Oh.
and I know a bit of her family history, and I think some of what happened to her happened because she had bad genes, and then and other things. But her life in this world was not the best. I definitely think she's in a better place and being taken care of, right? So,
Yeah,
so you say to yourself, who's going to go to the funeral of a 47-year-old woman who has had addiction issues all of her life and doesn't have a lot of friends, right? Who's going to go? 140 people showed up at the funeral.
wow. It's a support for the family. Yeah.
They were friends of the family. You know, some relatives. We don't have a big family, so it was some relatives and friends of the family, friends who knew Roger and Terry, who wanted to support them and offer their condolences. And that, I think, a lot of what they remember. They were awed, I think, by the number of people there. You know, Roger and I were talking one day on the way back from Boston, and this is when they knew that she only had a few days left, right? So we stopped at Rhine, so because he knows the people there and he wanted to get things set up. So we were talking, he said, you know, how many people do you think will come to the funeral? He said, you think 30 people will be there? I said, oh yeah, you know, I mean, I'm thinking some of your friends are going to come, and, you know, 139, 140 people were there. So that support for them was really, really important.
You know, Arlene, there's sometimes I've been at funerals, it's sad, but I've seen funerals sometimes with 2 or 3 people.
Right.
At the graveside.
Yeah.
It's horrible. When someone's so old, there was no one that remembers.
No one left.
It's that's a sad thing. Yeah. But it's a mitzvah what we did. We prayed for Elizabeth. Now, even if she left this plane, we still prayed for her soul. So
right.
Prayed for her soul. The prayers aren't levatala, as they say. They're not wasted prayers. You know, the prayers I still believe help, even if someone doesn't recover. And you probably knew there was a very slight chance of her recovering.
Yeah. I think I've said to you before, Rabbi, that when we do the healing prayer, the Mishaberach.
Oh yeah.
I really pray for the best outcome. You know, it's not for me. You hope that person will get well, have quality of life. It's not for me to make that decision. It's for me to ask God to do the best thing. And that's what I've done for 9 years. Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Oh, somehow it muted when I looked at Neil. I became speechless.
Hey, Neil.
That sounds reasonable.
I was speechless. We had the annual meeting and they said, who was there last year? The aldermans. They weren't there this year. So.
No, something came up at the last moment and we didn't make it.
Okay, well, it worked out well. It was we got some new board members that actually attend all our programs, which is good. So involved. We got Scott and Marty and Marcy and Josh on the board, Josh Goldberg, people that come to our program services classes. So I know Scott will tell you that's a big advantage. People that are really involved in the synagogue being on the board. So that's something I've always wanted myself. People, a lot of times, you know, most boards that I've been on, people have to go to the programs, but in our board, it wasn't always the case. So now hopefully we'll have, 70 or 80% of the people on the board coming to events.
I was talking to Carrie today.
Oh, yeah.
So I think I'm going to rejoin the synagogue. I have to write to.
Good.
I have to write to Deanie and find out what I have to do.
Okay, that's good.
You know, I'm still a member in Hebron and I'll always be a member there, but
Oh, okay, I understand. You're
I was,
allegiant to what they do.
I was impressed with what he had to say. And of course, I like Kerry a lot, so.
Well, yeah, we everyone loves Kerry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I know him for 28 years. He's always been very good to me personally and to the synagogue.
Yeah.
Whole family has always been to many, many events of theirs. Okay, so I wasn't here last week. So where did you end? I don't know what page you were on.
We ended on 83A2
Yeah,
at the top, the first full paragraph.
okay. Oh, that's right.
So
We
you
just,
can, we got
Yeah,
a
the
page
Gemara
on that. and
records several incidents.
83A2. Okay.
The Gemara records several incidents.
Also, we're going to finish the book today.
Oh, yes,
We are.
yes,
in about
We came
10
so
minutes,
close.
probably.
Last week.
Oh, let me get my little drink for the.
you done?
Thank your family, Scott, for the card. I really appreciated it.
I will.
Okay. So okay. Neil, are you want to read the last? Well, there's not many notes on the page after. You want to just take it to the end, Neil? There's only 5 lines on the next page.
Okay.
Cheers,
We'll deal with
l'chaim. Shakol niyeh bidvaro. Amen. Okay.
L'chaim.
You know what? I wouldn't be a good Chabad rabbi. I don't drink alcohol, but this is a chocolate protein shake. Oh. This is my idea. We just discussed Birchat HaNet about enjoying stuff before we eat. I'd rather have this than vodka any day. I'm sorry. The
Yeah,
Gemara record.
You've met Rabbi Valvarsky, I take it.
Yeah, I'm not him.
Yeah, good thing, because he was, the one time we was there, he had a bottle of vodka that big, and he was working on it real serious.
Well, you know, he's one of my closest friends, but he knows I have water when I have a toast. He knows it. Okay. The Gemara records several incidents which demonstrate the application of Isi ben Yehuda's law and practice. Ahu Gavra. Gavra is the Hebrew modern word. Gever is a man. There was a certain guy, the Havaka Mavar Chavita de Chamra. He was moving a keg of wine. Where was it? Biristaka Dimchoza. It was in a town square of a place called Machoza. And what happened? It wasn't careful. Utfara Baziza Dimchoza. And he accidentally broke it on this. I was telling you guys last night that this woman, I was at a magic show, and guys, I was in a, Tammy was singing, I was invited, and Erin did a magic show, and she was singing songs of the 20s and 30s. So we were in a parlor. It's, guys, maybe this is a lesson to be learned. It's 85 degrees, and someone went out to get water. It was very hot in there. A woman was sitting, maybe she's like 280 pounds or something. A woman was leaning on a 200-year-old table. She leaned on the table, and we're talking about here about breaking, and the table broke, and she fell to the ground. Now, it could have been really bad. Thank God. But the lesson learned is, you know what? If you're hot like that, you know, to stand up for an hour, I just think maybe you should have chairs there. Really. I mean, seriously. I mean, I learned the lesson. If it's hot as hell, there's no water. You know what? Have people at least sit on the seat there, and don't force them to almost kill themselves. Atal Kamed Rava. He came before Rava for a ruling. Amarle. So Rava said to this guy, Rishtaka dimchoza shricheba inshe. In the town square of this place called Machoza, people are usually present. Hence, they're probably witnesses to the accident. But, so he says, Zeal, go, Iti Raya Ve'ipatar. Go and bring proof that is the testimony of witnesses that you were not negligent. Neil, number 11, there's nothing left to say.
Ref Hodesh Rambam, see Ritva, see note 10.
Okay, these are all famous commentators. Okay. And be free from having to pay, number 12.
Rava ruled that the porter is liable to pay unless he produces witnesses who confirm his story. Taking an oath is insufficient.
Amar le Rav Yossi Berei, Yossi the son of Rava said to his father, Kaman ki isi, according to whom do you rule? According to isi? Amar le, Rava said to him, Ein ki isi. Yes, I ruled in accordance with isi, Usfira la and kavate, and we agree with him in general. 13.
By adding the words, and we agree with him, Rava teaches that the halacha accords with isi, not only the case of a shomer, but also in other situations where a defendant could free himself from liability by taking an oath. The Gemara proceeds to record such a case.
Okay, we're closing the whole book here. The following incident demonstrates us the application of Isi's law in a case that does not involve a shomer. Again, same situation. How gavra da amar le lechavre. Remember the root of chaver, it's chaver, which is modern Hebrew for friend. Certain guy who said to this fellow or his friend, Zil again, go again, Zila arba ma'ad dane cham. Go and buy 400 barrels of chamra is wine. So go buy arba ma'a, 400 wines barrels. Azal zamanle. The agent went and he bought 400 barrels of wine for the principal. L'sof, later, ata lekame amarle. The agent went to principal and he said to him, Zvini lach arba ma'a dani chamra. I bought 400 barrels of wine for you. Utkifulahu. What happened? It wasn't such a great vintage. The wine has since turned sour.
14. The agent claimed that the wine turned sour after he bought it for the principal, and therefore the loss must be borne by the principal. The principal, however, claimed that the messenger had cheated him, either by buying vinegar, which is of course much cheaper than wine, or by presenting his own vinegar.
So, Atalakame de Rava. He came before Rava for ruling. Amarle, Rava said to him this. Abba mea dani chamet kife. 4 barrels, 100 barrels that go sour, kala itle lemilta, is something that is widely known. Zil iti raya, go and bring proof. The mekara ki mizabnat lahu, when you originally brought the wine, kamra malya lahava. It was good wine. What happened? The ipata, and be free from having to pay.
15. Rava insisted that the agent bring witnesses to testify about the wine and would not free him from payment on the basis of an oath. Normally, if a principal has a claim against his agent that is not based on certain knowledge, the agent can free himself by taking an oath. I was wondering about that. Thus, in the present case, where the principal suspects that the agent cheated him but is not sure, the agent should only have to swear to the truth of his story. Rava teaches that Isi's principle applies in this case, since it can be assumed that if anything happened to the wine, people would know about it. The agent is not freed from having to pay unless he produces witnesses who confirm his story. See Ritva, etc.
So it's interesting how it starts the story in the last paragraph. He says, certain man said, go and buy 400 barrels of wine. And the agent went and bought the 400 barrels of wine for the principal. Sometime later, he went to the principal and told him that the wine was sour. You could interpret that as he went and he bought the wine, but he never said anything to the principal until the wine went sour. And then he came and said, your wine is sour.
Yeah.
If you read it that way, makes it a little iffy as to whether, but it's written, it's a strange way to write that, I think.
I agree. It does, the verbiage would tell you that there's something afoot there.
Right. That's what I think.
Something afoot, yeah. A good way to put it. Amar le Rav Yosef Bray. Okay, Rav Yosef, the son of Rava, said to dad, Kaman ki isi. According to whom do you rule? According to Isi? Amar le Rava said to him, hey, ki isi, yes. It's funny, ain in modern Hebrew is no, ain here is yes. Yes. I ruled in accordance with Isi, Usfira la kavate, and we agree with him in general.
See note
no
13. Oh, yeah, the part about we agree with him.
So yeah, so note 13 is saying we agree with him. It's the laws with Isi, not only in the case of a Shoma, also in other situations. Okay. The Gemara is recording an ordinance relating to the liability of porters. Atkin Rav Chia bar Yosef the Sikra. Rav Chia bar Yosef instituted the following in Sikra. Hane de Rahu ba'agra. Concerning porters who carry a load. Oh yeah, that's too large for one porter, but too small to require two porters with a yoke.
That is a yoke designed to carry a load that is ordinarily too heavy for a single person to carry on his own.
The itvar, if it.
18. That is the yoke. According to Ritva, however, the Gemara means that the porter stumbled and the yoke and the load broke.
It happened.
Yeah.
Okay. If it breaks in Shalom Palga, the porter has to pay half the value of the load. My time. Always the reason. What is that reason? So they say, Nafish lachad vizutar litre. Since the load is too large for one person, but too small to require two, karav la'ones v'karav l'pshia. It's akin to an unavoidable accident, but it's also akin to negligence.
19. This is akin to an unavoidable accident because the load was not of a size that is appropriate for two people. In such a case, a porter typically makes an extra effort and carries the load on his own. However, this is also akin to negligence because a porter should not take such a heavy load on his own. It is unclear how to classify the situation. Is it an unavoidable accident for which a porter is not liable, or is it negligence for which he is liable? Rav Chia therefore enacted that the porter must pay half. I would wonder if I agree with the half because I think that the principal is also at fault, only hiring one person.
Right.
The principal should know, assumedly he's done this before and should know what is required. So I think that both of them are equally at fault.
I agree with you, but I agree with you, period. It's a touchy situation. But you read it here, it says, if it's not enough load for two people, you can't have two people. I suppose you could make it in two trips, but you're really waiting for an accident to happen.
Yeah, you're asking.
Yeah.
And is it really his fault if he stumbled under that load because he had no choice?
Rav is unclear. Rav Chia is therefore thinking that it's sort of a shared responsibility here.
Yeah.
I think Billy agrees.
I think so.
Halacha Kabilly.
Billy wants his own book. He's tired of reading over your shoulder.
I can
Well,
tell.
he's gonna have a new book soon. Okay. Billy, you hear that? Okay. The digla. Concerning a porter who carries a load that is heavy enough to require two porters with a double yoke.
20. That is a yoke that a single porter uses to carry a load for which two porters are normally required.
The Shalom Kula, if it breaks, he pays the entire value of the load.
21. A load heavy enough to require two porters should be carried by two porters. Yeah, a porter who carries such a load on his own, even with a double yoke, is considered negligent and is held fully responsible.
You have to know what you're going to be lifting. Okay. The chapter is concluding with an incident that demonstrates the higher standard to which righteous people are held. Okay, we all know that if you're more righteous, like Moshe, why did he have to not go into the land? Because he was on a higher level. So we're going to end with an incident like that. It's going to say that Rabbi Bar Chanan, Tfaru le Hanu Shkulai Chavita de Chamra. What did he have? He had a keg of wine broken by porters.
22. The porters were negligent. For example, they stumbled on level ground or they used double yokes.
So what happens then? Shakal legli maihu. He took their cloaks as payment. Atu Armal Rav. They went and told Rav. Armalei, Rav, last page, said to Rabba Bar Chanan, Havlahu Galimayu. Give them back their cloaks. Armalei, he said to Rav, Dina Hachi. Dina, the law. Is that the law? Armalei, Rav answered him. Ein Laman Telech B'derech Tovim. Yes, as it's written, in order that you go on the path of good people.
23. Proverbs 2:20. Rav insisted that Rabbi Bar Chanan go beyond the letter of the law. There is a dispute among the halachic authorities as to whether the judiciary can force a person to act beyond the letter of the law.
Yahiv Lahu Gumimahu. He gave him back the cloaks. Amrulay said to Rav, Anye Anan, we're poor people. The Tarchinan Kula Yoma, and we labored the entire day. V'chafinan, the late Lan Midday. We are starving and have nothing to eat. Amrulay, Rav said to Rabbi Bar Chanan, Zil Havagrayu, pay them their fee. Amalei, he asked Rav, Dina Hachi, is that the law? Amalei, Rav answered him, Ein Barchot Katikim Tishmor. Yes, as that the very verse continues, and keep the ways of righteous people.
Among the ways of righteous people is that they have compassion for others.
Is that the way it is? Yeah, is that so? We're all righteous. That if we have compassion, we have rahmanas for people. I think we really have to have that trait in all of us, not just right. I was inbred with that, going to Jewish day school, having compassion. I mean, we performed, like Marty and I, the choirs. We performed for elderly people. We went to nursing. Yeah, we had compassion for people.
Community service.
Yeah, community service. Hadran Allah hasocher et umanin. We shall return to you hasocher es ha-umanin.
I am.
You ready for the next book? Can I put this away, retire it, and bring the next one?
Yep. 83A4. Here we come. Tuck this book into my collection.
Yeah.
Oops, bedtime. Yeah, you.
Oh, we have a nice mission again. Okay, do we need to read any notes in the beginning? No. You know, it's funny. I look at these notes and I look at the people that gave money for these, the Schottenstein, and I recognize like 5 names in here. It's amazing. I recognize a lot of these people that grew up in my area that supported Schottenstein. Okay, so we're starting with a new Mishnah. And that means with Arlene, do you want to take over the first page of notes in the last book?
Sure.
Okay, so a little preview here. When a person hires workers, You can make stipulations that you wish. Note 1.
A person who initiates any contract or transaction may set forth stipulations of his choice, and these stipulations are binding. See Tosafos.
Okay, the first words of the Mishnah. Okay, hasocher et hapolim. So I remember when I was a kid, speaking of those names I just read there, hasocher, I remember when we studied Baba Mitzi when I was younger, I think I was like 14. Socher is if you're hiring, and a poel is a worker, a laborer. So if you're hiring day laborers, it's implied that the poelim doesn't say day, it's implying that they're employed during the day. And subsequently tell them to rise early and remain there like hariv, to remain at work until erev, dark.
He originally hired them without making any specific stipulations, and only later instructed them to come early and leave late. The Gemara below, in 83b, will discuss the length of a standard workday.
The law is as follows. Makom shenagush shelo lahaskim. They live in a place where the laborers are accustomed to arise early for work, shelo lahariv, or not to remain until dark.
To arise.
Hmm?
They're accustomed not to arise.
Accustomed not to arise early for work, or not to remain until dark. Eino rashai l'chofan. He has no right to compel them to do so. Note 3.
The Gemara will explain the novelty of the Mishnah's ruling here, according to Rashi.
Makom shenagu lazun. Okay, that comes to the word like mazon, which is food. Furthermore, if they live in a place where the residents are accustomed lazun, to feed their workers, yazun, then what happens? Gotta feed them. L'sapek b'mitika. The resident comes to provide mitika is relish. If you have to provide it, you got to provide relish.
Number 4. That is, in addition to the food that it was customary to provide.
Interesting. The relish too. Okay. The Mishnah states the general rule, which is hakol, everything kaminaga medina. Okay, so here's how we go back to our customs in our own shul. What our minhag is sort of becomes binding. Everything must be done according to minhag, according to whatever the local custom. Medina is the land. Everything must be done according to the local custom. The Mishnah has an incident related to the ruling. It says Masa, something happened, but Rabbi Yochanan ben Matcha, Shemar Livno. Rabbi Yochanan ben Matcha, he said to his son this. He said, say skor lanu polim. Go and hire labor workers for us. Halachu fasak lahem mizono. The son went, hired laborers, and made a commitment to them. I'm providing you with food. And Shabbat ate salaviv amarlo. When he came back to his dad and told me that his father wasn't satisfied, he said to him, Beni, my son, afinu imatao salem kisudat shlomo b'shato. It's funny. He even prepared them a meal like Solomon's banquet. I don't know, it was like in his heyday, you can imagine.
That is, during the time he reigned, in his later years, Solomon was deposed by Ashmedai.
And what was Ashmedai? A demon. Ashmedai was a demon. Okay. Lo yatzata yedecho imahen. You will not have discharged your duty toward them. Shehein b'nei Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. That they are the children of our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Number 6.
The Gemara in 86b relates that the meals served by Abraham were more sumptuous than those of Solomon. Although the Mishnah derives this from verses regarding Abraham, it mentions Isaac and Jacob as well, to indicate that only their descendants are entitled to these privileges, since they are considered Abraham's heirs and not Ishmael and Esau. The rabbis derive this from Genesis 21:12. For in Isaac and not Ishmael shall offspring be considered yours. And since scripture states in Isaac, it intimates that only part of Isaac's offspring will be courted as Abraham's seed, Jacob, but not Esau. Thus, Rav Yochanan was stating that it would be almost impossible to fulfill his obligation correctly.
Rather, before they start work, go and say this. Bilvad, your high condition, you have no claim upon me other than bread. Remember, kitniot on Passover means beans, and beans alone.
Rashi explains that he had to apprise the laborers of this change in terms before they began to work, because afterwards would have been too late. The reason is that until they started the job, the implied offer of a sumptuous feast is merely a verbal commitment. Reneging on such a commitment does not constitute a lack of trustworthiness. That is, it is permitted if there is a valid reason for doing so. See above in 49a, note 10. Once the laborers began to work, however, Rav Yochanan ben Maaseh became obligated to abide by his son's word.
Concluding the mission, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, he's saying this, Lo hayat tzarich lomar, you didn't have to say this because hakol k'minhag hamedina. Again, that all issues are decided according to local customs, and thus the original obligation was only to provide a standard meal. You know what? I got to tell you, when I first came up here, it was we merged together with Jewish Aid Synagogue, and there was a guy who was responsible for the burial society of Jewish Aid, Abe Zubo, and I did funerals at the Jewish Aid Cemetery, and I did funerals at the Avat Achim Cemetery back then. And Abe Zubo told me that it was the custom of that synagogue that we merged with eventually, that when it came to burial, they wouldn't allow the children of the deceased to bury the burial. So I said, well, where'd you get that custom from? He said, well, that's our custom from Europe. But what am I supposed to do? What would you do if you were me? Anyway, I abided by the custom. So he said that was when he died, I went to our custom, which was that wasn't our custom. Have you ever heard of that, Neil, before, that children can't dig and bury a parent?
No, I'm rather surprised that you can't do that sort of thing.
I asked him to show me where it was. I couldn't find it anywhere that a child can't do it. But
I've never heard it.
I've been to some Chabad services where that was the case. So I'm sure it was from somewhere they get it. But so here we go again. So yeah.
But it was custom, so it was probably oral and not written, correct?
Yeah. It was custom. Yeah, burial is all custom basically. So, but yeah. So the thing is, I abided by the custom. I mean, because he was getting angry if I. What are you going to do? That was his cemetery and Jewish Aid, and now we're one. So we merged and we go by our custom. But one thing I don't like, Arlene, about it is if I ask someone where he got the custom from, he couldn't tell me. I say, can you show me a source for it? I could see where it's from, where it's written somewhere. He says, you know what he said to me, Scott? He said to me, Rabbi, you should know better. He said you should know that that's the custom. I said, really?
He got it from his father and his.
knowledge.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Arlene.
I was just going to say, of course, he got it from his father, who got it from his father. So he
Yeah.
wouldn't know the source. That's what he was told to do.
We always call that tribal knowledge.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
It's not written anywhere, but
You
those
know,
who don't know.
Knows it anyway.
I asked my colleague about it, and I couldn't actually use these words to Abe because I respected Abe. I couldn't use these words. The words are minhag shtus. That means it's a minhag that has no basis for any type of utilization of it. I couldn't use those words. Minhag shtus. There is such a thing. My colleague said to tell him it's a minhag shtus is like it's not really a valid minhag. I couldn't do that anyway. Anyway, you know what? I think, guys, you have to respect someone. If when you're in someone else's turf, it's like, I'll tell you one last thing. When my mother passed away, when my stepfather Arthur passed away, we had a funeral in Queens, and we went to a cemetery in Queens. And this is the deal. I got there, and we went to this synagogue called Shari Tefillah growing up. He went to this thing called the White Shul. It was Rabbi Polkowitz, a famous rabbi in his time. I had Rabbi Rackman, a famous rabbi. Anyway, I get to the cemetery, and we're turning to the burial. Here we go again with the burial. And I remember Mrs. Mandel, who's the mother of the rabbi in Newport, Mani. Anyway, said to me, I said, we take the first shovelful of dirt from the back side of the shovel. And I remember said to me, you know what we do here, the White Shul custom? Every shovelful is from the back side of the shovel.
Wow.
Every shovelful is from the back side of the shovel. Let me tell you, it took a long time to do that burial. But here again, what are we going to do? I mean, he says that was the custom of the White Shul, where he went when he lived in Rockaway during his formative years when he raised his kids out there. So here we go again. So anyway, when it comes to burial, obviously people have to. If you and me, Neil, would you have disputed that and say I don't want to do that, or you say that's fine?
Absolutely not. As you said, you're on their turf.
Yeah, on their turf. Yeah. Okay. The Gemara addresses the Mishnah's first statement that one cannot compel workers to labor longer than is dictated by local custom. Shita. It's obvious. If when he hired them, he didn't stipulate which hours he wanted, then of course they need only work the hours which are customary. Gemara is explaining no, lo tzricha. The Mishnah's ruling is necessary in the case that tafalahu agrayu, we initially added to their usual wages. That is, he promised them a higher wage than a customer. Maldatema, in such a case, you might have said that what? Amalahu haditfa lahu agrayu. You could rightfully tell the workers that which I added to your wages, adata dimkadmitu umakshekitkitu bahadai, was with the understanding that you would arise early and remain me until dark, as I am now instructing you to do. Kamash Malan, which always means the Mishnah is telling us, the Amrale, it's informing us that they can reply to him this. Hi, the Tafat Lan Adata da Avdinan Lach Avita Shapirta. That which you added extra wages for us was with the understanding that we would do good work for you, not that we should work longer hours. Again, a little different. 8.
See, Ketsos Chosen. If the work they do is in fact no better than that of other workers, there is a dispute as to whether he may deduct from the bonus. I don't know how you prove that.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Whose opinion here?
Yeah,
I mean, the workers
Yeah.
are sure they're doing great stuff.
right.
Yeah, that's where I think it's incumbent upon the employer to say at the onset that here's the deal. You work
Right.
from sun up to sundown. Otherwise, it falls back on local custom.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's the fact that it said that already, that you should be, the person in charge who defines the contract should set up the stipulations ahead of time.
Right.
And that person should, I'm not questioning that. But as a worker, I think I would ask, why am I getting the extra money? I suppose there's the shut up and take it thing, but then you're not sure.
Which most people would do. Most people would do.
Yeah, but then you're
Grab
not
it.
sure what you're getting into.
Yeah, grab it and run.
Right.
You know, I was speaking to a woman this week, and by mistake, when she got her paycheck from school, her last paychecks of the year, instead of paying for 7.5 hours, they paid her for 750 hours.
Mm,
So
What's a
rather
run, friend?
rather than taking it, Arlene, she told them about it, and they said, "Can't do anything. We'll just next year. We'll just wait to pay you until they said we can't change it." You can imagine that you can't change it. Well, that's how the school system operates, right? Can't change it now. You have the money until next year, till you get
I
paid
don't know.
again.
If they can't change it, then
Once it's in the
can
system,
the person, does the person have to abide by that?
yeah.
I mean,
well,
to be honest, you would do that, but you've been overpaid. They say we can't do anything about it.
yeah.
Then I don't know.
I don't know. I know.
time to take some unpaid leave.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I know when I had my auto accident, God, it was 7 years ago, the first check from MCC showed up anyway. And since I wasn't working, I called up and said, and they actually say, okay, just make out us a check and put a note on what it's for and send it back and we'll take care of it.
Yeah.
And they did.
No. Oh,
Three
Neil, that
Rivers.
was good. Neil, I'm so glad you're still okay after that whole. That was such a debacle.
Yeah, that didn't have any charm.
I am so careful on that corner. I got to tell you, I look, and I
Tough
look,
corner.
and I look.
The corner of West Road and
Yeah.
85.
Yeah, I
It's-
know what you're talking about. That is a terrible corner.
Yeah, you can't see to the right. And there's either you can go straight and go left or take the jog and go right because there's a little triangle there. And as far as I'm concerned, the whole thing is a mess.
But why couldn't they put a light there or something like that after that?
Well, my suggestion was that they
What would you suggest?
close off the part that goes to the left and everyone has to go or come into from the right,
Yeah.
from 85.
They have enough room there. They have enough room there to make just a simple T intersection.
Yeah. In fact, there was one in Bolton that was like that where you came up and they ended up closing off and rearranging it. So it was the only hazard with taking the right-hand side, the short side, is that it cuts your visibility off to your right. You lose about 50 feet of visibility.
Yeah.
But that turns out to not be as big a problem as you might like, but
Well, I know when my first Talmud teacher in high school, may he rest in peace, my brother's rabbi from West Hempstead, when he was hit by a car and really very severely injured in the accident, because of that whole thing, they put a light up there by that intersection. So
yeah,
I mean,
really,
they actually did something of it.
yeah, I really would not like to have a light there, frankly, because it's just,
Probably a light wouldn't be the best thing, but
it wouldn't be that much traffic.
I just hate turning my neck all the time.
Yeah.
Get a traffic strip like we have in Salem. That's
Oh,
worked quite well since they did that. Nobody who doesn't live in Salem likes it, but everybody who does live in Salem enjoys the fact that we don't have to hear the ambulances every day.
Yeah, no, we code that way all the time, and I think that was a great solution because I remember coming that way before and trying to coming on 82 and trying to make a left, and it was like forever.
Yeah.
but let me ask you this: why?
The other part of that was folks coming from Norwich way down 82 would be coming down that hill and they see the lights start to change, so they'd floor it. And then they'd end up T-boning somebody in the intersection. And every time it happened, it was a serious accident.
Well, let me ask you, engineers. When I was in Eilat, and there's other cities in Israel that have this rule too, they only have those things. There's no lights. All they have are those things. Can you imagine what you have in Salem by your house, God? Imagine having that 25 times in a row.
Yeah.
It can be a mess if it's overdone. But
why is that? Why
I
you guys
prefer them.
engineers?
I prefer them to traffic lights, though.
I agree.
The whole place in a lot. Why every single place in a lot? It's a pain in the neck, Scott.
I mean, if it's something
Slows
that,
traffic.
you know,
It slows
desert,
traffic.
yeah. It slows it down coming in, but it also
Yeah.
keeps it moving. It's no stop and go. It's just a constant stream. But you
Yeah.
know, if there's smaller roads and it's just a stop sign, then that's fine. But I really do prefer the traffic circles to the traffic lights.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, 25 in a row, Scott. You know, Waze
Yeah.
kept saying, take the first, take the first. It was funny, I gotta tell you. Okay.
Oh, you got to finish this page.
Yeah, where were we here?
The last bit of this page.
Oh, the Gemara cites an Amoric ruling concerning day laborers. Amar Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish said this. Okay, Scott, I guess you're up on 83b1. Poel, a worker, bichnistato, on his way to the city, to his home at the end of the workday, Mishalo, he has to yield to his employer from his own time. He must therefore continue working until the stars appear. Yitioto, however, on his way out of the city at the beginning of the workday, Mishal Baal Habayit. Time must be yielded from that of the employer. Plus, he doesn't have to go to earlier than sunrise. Number one, sunrise.
The workday begins at sunrise and ends when the stars appear. Since the laborer's commute from his home to the workplace is for his employer's needs, he may make the trip on his employer's time. At the end of the day, however, he must actually remain at work until the stars appear, since his commute home is not for his employer's benefit, but rather his own. Our elucidation of the text, that for the commute home, a worker must yield of his own time to the employer, follows Rashi. Tosafos questioned, however, why Rashi calls yielding since the worker is legally required to work until night.
The Nemar, because it says, you make darkness and it's night in it every forest beast, forest beast stirs. The sun shines, they are gathered in, and their dens they crouch. In the dens, they're crouching. Adam the follow. Man goes forth to his work, Larato ade arab, and to his labor until evening.
Psalms 104, 20, 22 to 23. When the sun rises at dawn, man first goes forth to his work. He must labor there until evening, that is, until it grows dark and the stars appear.
But the Gemara is going to have a question on this. V'lechave hechi nehige. Why is a statement of specific work hours necessary? Let us simply see what is customary among the residents in this matter, as the Mishnah says, and follow that. Why then would Reish Lakish's ruling ever be applicable? The Gemara is answering Be'ir Chadasha. Reish Lakish's ruling would apply in a new town where no customs have yet been established. The Gemara asks again, Ichazeh mehecha ka'atu. Then let us see where the most of number 3.
Kiddushei Haran.
Okay, Rabbi Nachman says this. The residents of this new town originally came from. The workday customs of the old town will then determine the customs of this one. Gemara's answering. Ben Kutay. The new town is peopled by a collection of immigrants from different towns with varying customs, and thus no single custom is automatically followed. In such a case, Reish Lakish's ruling applies. Gemara suggests another solution. Ibai Nemer, perhaps you say this. What? Reish Lakish's ruling applies to Amalei. The employer told the workers, they agreed to leave for Doraita. You can be hired by me according to the scriptural conditions of employment for a day worker. Gemara is commencing a lengthy sequence of Aggadic exposition and narrative. The first of these concerns the verse above. The Rosh Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Zera said this. Amalei Tanei Rav Yosef. Some say Rav Yosef thought this. Ma'aktiv, what is meant by which is written, Tashet, Koshech, Bihi Laila, Bo Termosh Kol Yachtaito Ya'ar. You make darkness as it is night, in it every forest beast stirs. Tashet Koshech, Bihi Laila. You make darkness and it's night. Ze'olam hazeh shetomel lalayla. This is referring to this world, which is night, Bo tirmosh kol chayto yar. In it, every forest bears thirst. Elo Rishaim Shabo Domin Lachaya Shabayar. Who are these? They're wicked in the world, or comparable to a beast in a forest.
A wild animal is at liberty to roam the forest and conduct itself as beasts do. Similarly, the wicked are allowed to continue in their evil ways while no retribution is necessarily visited upon them in this world.
Mizrach Hashemesh Yasfun ve'el monam yirbatzun. The sun shines, they gathered in, and in the dens they crowd. Mizrach Hashemesh l'tzadikim. Sun shines for the righteous in the next world. Yasfun Rishaim legehenom. The wicked are gathered into Gehenna. V'moncha yirbatzun. In their dens they crouch. What? Ein lecha kol tzadik v'tzadik. You won't find
Literally, you do not have.
a single righteous person. She'ein lo mador lefi chvodo, without lodgings befitting his eminence.
In the dark night of this world, it is difficult to distinguish between the virtues of one person and another. In the clear daylight of the next world, however, these differences will be apparent. The indication that each righteous person has his own separate lodging is from the plural form Monotam, their dens.
Good job, monotam. Yetzi adam lefalo. Man goes forth to work. Yetu tzadikim lekabel skaran. The righteous go forth to receive their reward, their scar. Vodato adei erev. And to his labor until evening, the misha hishlim avodato adei erev. If he has completed service to God and leaving the day of his death.
If, however, he rebels against God in the last portion of his life, he forfeits his earlier good deeds and is judged a wicked person. Since his rebellion occurred at the very end of his life, with full knowledge of the master against whom he rebelled, it signals his remorse for all his past good deeds.
It'll be careful, guys. Okay. The Gemara is now going to relate an incident which makes reference to the verse just expounded. Rabbi Elazar ben Rav Shimon Ashkaf Lahu Parag. Rabbi Elazar, the son of Shimon, came across a marshal, the Kata Fiskan Avod. It's commissioned by the king to investigate and arrest thieves.
These thieves would then be put to death.
Amalei, Rabbi Elazar, son of Shimon, said to him, how do you manage to prevail over them? Are they not like the beasts as it's written? And in every forest bear stirred.
Since they are wily, like beasts who hide in their lairs during the day, how do you manage to apprehend them?
Gemara records a variant tradition. Some say Rav Elazar, the son of Shimon, expressed this point to him from his verse.
Psalms 10:9.
It says there, Yerav bamistar ka'aryeh v'suko. He lurks in hiding like a lion in his lair. Elazar, son of Shimon, says, Dilma shekakdesh tzadika v'shavka r'shiyeh. Perhaps you're mistakenly apprehending the innocent and leaving the guilty behind. Amalei Marshal said to him, my avid, but what can I do? Amana de Malkahu. It's the king's order, therefore I got to arrest someone. Amar Elazar, the son of Shimon, said to him, come, I will teach you you should proceed. What? All ba'arba shai lechanuta. The 4th hour of the day, enter a diner.
At this time, everyone stops in for breakfast.
Ki chazit inish dekash techama. If you see a man who's drinking wine, the kanakid kasa the yade v'kam and mames, and he holds his cup in his hand while dozing off. All ilve, inquire about him. Sricha medarbin hu denayim. He's a young rabbinical scholar and he dozes. Aftume kade lagarsa. You can assume that he woke early before dawn on half of his studies and is thus falling asleep now. 83b2. Poel who, if he is a day laborer, Kadim ka avid avite. Probably did his work early, via avite belela. Furthermore, even if they tell you he's a craftsman, his work is at night, but you regard this as suspicious, because if his house is silent at night, don't arrest him. Radude rade. He may be lengthening metal wires, which is a quiet craft.
12. He manufactures needles by taking iron or copper strands and thinning them out by passing them through a tool that has progressively smaller holes.
The E low, but if the person dozing isn't one of those, Garvahu vitafse, then you can safely deduce that he is a thief and you should arrest him.
13. He sleeps by day after having been awake during the night, robbing wayfarers or breaking into homes. NCIS the same.
Yeah, earlier version of it. Yeah.
That was 13.
Well, let's see, my thing just moved.
Oh,
That was 13, right?
83B2.
Okay, my book just moved. Okay. Ishtama Milta ben Malka. The matter, that is, Rav Elazar, the son of Shimon's advice, was heard in the palace. Amr, they declared, Karya de Igrata Ihu Leve Parvanka. Reader of the letter should be its deliverer. Let Rav Elazar, son of Shimon, be the one who put his own advice into practice. Atyihu Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon. So they brought Rav Elazar, the son of Shimon, authorized with him, the Katavis, the Agave Va'azra, and he set about arresting thieves. Elazar, the son of Shimon, is criticized. Shalach le Rabbi Yoshua ben Karka. Yoshua ben Karka sent a message. Homes ben Yayin, vinegar, son of wine.
14. The bad son of a good father, Rashi. Rav Elazar's father was the great Rav Shimon bar Yochai.
I like that. Vinegar, the son of wine.
That's a nice metaphor.
Yeah.
That is. Yeah, really. Ad mataya tamoser amoshal henula hariga. How long will you hand over the people of our God to this execution, to their execution? Shalcher Velazar sent back to him, Kotzim ani mechalam min hakerem. I am ridding the vineyard of its thorns. They got a long one here. Okay.
Okay, 15. That is, I am ridding the Jewish people of its evildoers. The metaphor of a vineyard is based on a verse in Isaiah. For the vineyard of Hashem of hosts is the house of Israel. Excuse me. The question presents itself, why was Rev Elazar, the son of Rev Shimon, permitted to hand fellow Jews over to their execution? There is no penalty of death for stealing. Furthermore, he did so without any witness testimony and without even finding them guilty in a Jewish court of law. Rashba and Rivash both state in their responses that Rev Elazar, the son of Rev Shimon's action, were an example of an extraordinary powers a leading rabbi may exercise under extraordinary circumstances. If crime is so rampant that it threatens to cause a breakdown in society, the leading rabbis and courts are empowered to use all means necessary to repair the breach. This is true all the more so when they are authorized to take such measures by the secular government. Rav Elazar, the son of Rav Shimon, held that thievery of his generation was such a category, and he thus was permitted or even obliged to turn over these Jewish thieves to their death at the hands of the government. Rev Yehoshua, ben Korachah, presumably disputed the necessity of applying these extraordinary powers. Normally, it is prohibited to hand over a fellow Jew to idolaters, even if he is wicked, and anyone who does so loses his portion in the world to come. Thus, he condemned Rev Elazar, the son of Rev Shimon's efforts to have these thieves killed.
You can see that. You're not supposed to turn in your fellow Jew, right? Shalachle, Rabbi Yoshua sent to him, Yavo Bala Karen Yichala et Kotza. Let the master of the vineyard come and get him his bit of his thorns himself.
16. That is, God can deal with the wicked without your assistance.
Oh God. Oh God. Nevertheless, Rav Elazar son of Shimon continued the efforts. Yom Echad. One day, Pagabe Hahu Koves, certain laundryman encountered Rav Elazar. Karye Chometz ben Yain, called him Vinegar, son of wine. What a name. Amar, Rav Elazar said to himself, since the laundryman is singularly contemptuous, one may deduce that he is a wicked person.
17. Rev Yehoshua ben Korach, who addressed him in the same way, was, of course, not a wicked person. As the Gemara makes clear below, Rev Elazar, the son of Rev Shimon, was a student of Rev Yehoshua ben Korach, and thus a rebuke from a teacher to a student, even a sharply rooted one, was entirely appropriate. To the laundryman, however, Rev Elazar, the son of Rev Shimon, was one of the leading rabbinic authorities of his time, and thus someone he was obliged to respect. His scornful name-for calling was therefore inexcusable.
Oh God, what a name. Amarlu, Rav Elazar said to his deputies, Tifsuhu, arrest him. Tasuhu, they arrested him. Levatak denafdate. After his mind was once again at ease, Azal Batre Lefruke. He went after the laundryman to redeem him from his impending execution. But Lamatze wasn't able to do so. Cry, Rav Elazar pronounced this verse on the laundryman. Shomer people, shomer mitzara nafsha. He who guards his mouth and tongue guards his soul from tribulation.
Proverbs 21:23.
They hung Zakafuhu. They hung the laundryman. Not a good incident. Okay.
Power corrupts. Power corrupts absolutely.
Rav Elazar reacted. Come to say Zika v'kavake. Stood on the gallows and he cried, Amalo. He said to him, Rabbi, al Rabbi, Nakatisha, don't be troubled. Juvno balo nara naorsa b'yom kippur. He and his son cohabited with a betrothed Nara on Yom Kippur. Oh, yeah, 19.
The first 6 months of a girl's maturity are governed by different laws than those which apply to adult women. This period is known as Na'aras. A girl becomes Na'ara at the age of 12, provided she has at least 2 pubic hairs, and she retains that classification up to half a year later. In Torah law, marriage takes place in 2 stages: Erushin, betrothal, and Nisuin, full marriage. Erushin, the first stage of the marriage process, prevents the woman from marrying anyone else and renders relations with any other man adulterous. However, until Nisuin has been performed, she does not live with her husband. Today, both these procedures are done at the same time. Erushin, through with the giving of the ring, and Nusin, although the chuppah and seclusion in the bridal shower. In earlier times, however, these 2 procedures were separated by a significant amount of time, often as much as a year. Thus, a betrothed Na'ara is a physically mature woman between the ages of 12 and 12 and a half, who is betrothed to a man through Erusin, but has not yet completed her marriage with Masuin.
Therefore, he's deserving of the punishment.
20. Cohabitation with a betrothed Na'ara is a capital F offense, punishable by stoning. Since all persons executed by stoning are hung afterward, it is appropriate that this laundryman was killed by hanging. The Gemara, in Sanhedrin 37b, teaches that although we have not been able to adjudicate capital cases since the destruction of the temple, nevertheless, the 4 types of execution continue to be meted out by heaven. Thus, for example, a person deserving death by strangulation might drown in a river, and one deserving death by burning might be trapped in a fire. The laundryman then received part of what he had received at the hands of the Sanhedrin. Rambam to Deuteronomy 21:22 points out that halacha follows the sages who say that the only criminals who are hung after being stoned are the idolater and the blasphemer. See different rabbis for different approaches to this problem. Okay, that was 20.
Hinich yado al b'nei me'av. Elazar rested his hand on his stomach.
21. That is the heart, which represents the seat of understanding, and the kidneys, which are advisors of a person.
Amar sisu b'nei me'ai sisu. Said, rejoice, my insides rejoice. Umas ve'koch alachem kach. If your uncertain judgments are thus just, then your certain judgments.
Persons arrested on account of reasons, suspicions, such as the person falling asleep in a diner.
Oh God! All the more so. And therefore, confident in you, my insides, that no maggot or worm will ever prevail over you. But despite this, Elazar, the son of Shimon's conscience was not put to rest. Arlene, 23. Here.
This is the way of the righteous, who worry about the harm they have caused others, even when they are obliged to do so. That's it.
Elazar tried to determine if he acted wrongfully. Ashkaya Sama Dishinta. They had him drink an anesthetic tonic. Ailuhu Leveta Deshesha. They brought him to a marble room. Kalachrese. Surgically incised the skin of his abdomen. Havu Mapke Mine. They removed from him during his operation. Dikule Vitar. Baskets and baskets of, that's the way to word it, fat.
Rav Elazar, the son of Rav Shimon, was extremely obese. According to Rashi, see the Gemara below.
And then they place these fats in the sun, in the hot summer months of Tammuz and Av, see if they become wormy. The low marks of they did not rot. Should we stop here on this next side of the page?
Yeah, that's probably a good point.
What with the fat not rotting? Yeah.
Yeah, this is fat rot. Stay tuned. Next week we shall find out.
Well, we got into the last book.
Quite
Yeah,
the
we
lengths
did.
to go to.
Yeah.
Don't feel better about some judgments that you made.
Okay. All right, troops. We'll see ya.
Take care. Have a good week, everyone.
You
All right.
too.
2.
They don't mind him yelling like that.
What a way to end. What a way.
All right, I'll put some kids down and then
Okay, we'll see you
send my
later.
dear wife down.
Okay.
Stop it. Now I lost it again. He told me what to do. Press on the icon to speak. Your microphone is unmuted.
Okay, I'm unmuted. I'm muted. Oh, Tracy, Trudy, you're gone.
Hey, Rama.
Hey, Deanna, we had Trudy that she just dropped out for, I don't know what happened to her. So.
I think you're still muted. I can't hear you.
Me? It says I'm unmuted. Can you hear me? Can you hear
Can
me?
you hear me?
Yeah.
I still can't hear you.
I'm not muted, it says. It says I'm now I'm unmuted. Can't hear me? I'm not muted. Let me see. Arlene, can you
I
hear
can hear
me?
you both. I can hear you and I can hear,
Yeah, I can't hear you either, Arlene.
Something's wrong with you have to, maybe you should log out and log back in.
because you're not muted.
I'm not muted. I unmuted myself. I'm fine. Okay, Deanne, maybe you should just go back in.
I'll send her a note, Rabbi.
Yeah. Trudy, how are you? You're all set there, Trudy? You're back with us, Trudy. See what can happen with that. Maybe it'd be better. Okay, she was gonna try that. Yeah, I tell you, nothing's ever perfect in a world full of Zoom. Right, Arlene?
Right?
I'll tell you, it's a hot day out there. Huh. Better than rain all day. I'll tell you one thing, Arlene. Yeah.
Yeah.
See what happens. Let's give her a minute to log back in and see what happens.
Rabbi, can you hear me?
Yes, Trudy, I can hear you.
Well, I have no inkling what I did. I just pushed a bunch of buttons.
Okay, well, I'm glad you're back with us now because, yeah. Okay, Deanna, it's better. It was one of those things we have to just restart.
Yeah, I think the speaker was shut off. So
Oh, is that what happened?
yeah, I was checking like the mute and everything. But then once I logged back in, I noticed the speaker light was not on. So
Okay, so
you can see
we're
why
up.
Scott's the technical person in the house.
Well, yeah, you figure you won't have problems over there. Okay, so this week's portion is Kukat Balak, the double portion. And some things in life are bad. Like we all know, idolatry is not really good. Some things in life are good, like we just talked about the last class, what, feeding the poor, helping out those in need, right? So it says in this week's portion that Chukat Torah means the decrees of our Torah. The word for decree, chok, is related to carve out of stone. Since God is eternal, God's decrees you could be saying are written in stone. Life, on the other hand, and the finite world he made is not carved or simple. It's often complex. Don't we all know? Life is pretty complex. Some things oddly are a curious mixture of good and bad, light and darkness. This can cause us confusion in life. The ultimate truth is that everything is eventually good. This is a hard thing to believe, though. I know it's hard to really believe. Everything is going to be good in the end. All events and things come from the infinite being and are therefore, by definition, they have to have some goodness. But we don't seem to live in that realm. We live in a realm where we must choose between good and evil. As I said in the last class, right? We have to choose sometimes what we're going to do. We must try to define our situations in order to act in accordance with God's will or the greatest good. Like the yin yang symbol, what do we have? There's often a little bit of light in the darkness and a little bit of darkness in the light. Sometimes an otherwise righteous person does a transgression thinking it's a mitzvah. In the beginning of the book of Samuel, when Penina and Hannah were together, Penina would purposely make Hannah feel bad about not having any children. Why would a righteous person who has been blessed with children of her own act this way? Well, you could say that her true intention was altruistic, to cause Hannah's prayer to be more heartfelt and tearful, knowing that this would cause more impact in heaven. We all remember the Purim story. Esther was chosen to be queen and forced to the situation of sleeping with this non-Jewish king Achashverosh, a transgression. However, since it was against her will, she was not held responsible. Later, when faced with Haman's evil decree to wipe out the Jews, Esther asked for an audience with the king to get him to rescind the decree. And she knew that by going to see the king, she was going to have to sleep with him. At that point, she was willingly doing a transgression. But as opposed to Penina, Esther was somehow justified, since the outcome, what was happening, she would be saving the entire nation. So these cases we're following are mixtures of right and wrong. The sage's assessment is as follows. Penina could have been clearly wrong. Esther was clearly right. We know with Dinah, Jacob's sons, their brothers, when they were killing all the people in the kingdom, that from the king who raped Dinah, could say that was also a mixture of right and wrong. Before the transgression of Adam, the world was a different place. Before Adam, you could say that it was ideal, the world. Pure and holy, temptation was really an external drive. The fruit that Adam and Eve ate was not merely the symbol of temptation, it was temptation itself. The Kabbalah teaches that when that fruit was ingested by primordial man, humanity became tainted. Humanity became a mixture of light and dark, causing all future decisions and temptations to become less clear. Yet with the flood, then we had the Tower of Babel, the Exodus from Egypt, things became clear once again. Light and dark took separate places, and spiritual choices were easy to make until the destruction of the temple and the dispersion of our people. When you live in a world full of confusion, and you are still able to make the right choices, let's say, for example, you have 357 channels on your TV, but you still turn it off to study with wisdom and Kabbalah and the Aggadah and Talmud. Abraham didn't have that test. Isaac didn't have the test. There was no video games. Remember the old days of Blockbuster? Remember the old days? My daughter worked in the Blockbuster. You would rent the movies at Blockbuster. Okay. Although we want to get as close to God as we can, our distance is what gives us a chance of meriting to see the ingathering of the exiles and the coming of the Messiah. When we live in a generation that could be far from spirituality, every correct decision you make means so much more. So this week, look at opportunities to find a way to get closer to God, to become a little more spiritual, take on a little bit of learning, maybe that seems to be challenging. We all know that we all facing the same thing, choices to be made. I know, for example, Deanne and Scott, I mean, well, you have to raise 3 kids. Obviously not going to have all the time in the world to study. But it's a real positive commandment in the Torah to raise children. And, doing a great job raising them. They come to synagogue, they come to Zoom services. I mean, with kids, most people say when that happens, there's no opportunity to study. Yet you guys find an opportunity to study with us as a family, come to services. You can easily have said, it's just too much with kids for us. Arlene, is busy with her thing. She has a partner to take care of, yet she finds the time to take care of us. Trudy has got her own issues with her, taking care of these animals all the time, right? And yet you still find the time to come to us on Friday night and to be part of our Kabbalah class. And it's not easy. Everyone's got different things in life. You got a job that's very taxing, Trudy. You have to counsel people with all types of problems, and you have to find a way. It's such a hard time sometimes to find a way to help people. A lot of times people don't want to help themselves, and that's a hard part. What did they say? God helps those who want to help themselves. So there are a lot of people that just go through the motions of therapy and stuff to try and improve. But I know very few people that actually really benefit from it. So it's a frustrating thing. You try to help as many people as possible. My sister's in the same field with EMDR. She tries to help as many people as possible, yet she does find time to see her grandchild and go to Brooklyn 1 or 2 days a week. So she sort of makes herself like partially retired, so she can actually do a job of being the head of the EMDR team of Connecticut, and yet be a good grandmother. And she's going to have another granddaughter in 3 weeks, so another one. So yet she'll find time, but she knows it's important in life that you have to be with family. That that family sometimes takes away from the work, but you know what? You have to find a balance, because you want to have an opportunity and bond with your grandchild and soon to be 2 grandchildren, and also have a place in the world to try to help people. So everyone in life has a balance. I got my own balance. I got my own, situations every day to have to deal with that aren't so pleasurable. But yet I find a time. I do study every day. I find some time of the day to at least study a little bit and have the opportunity to grow. In order to be a good teacher, I think you have to be a good student as well. Any comments about today's lessons from Pukat Balak? We all know that Balak was a wizard who tried to curse the Jewish people, but God made it that instead of cursing her, Bilam was fed the words from our Matovu prayer every morning that we say, how wonderful it is, the tents of Israel. And we say that when we get up in the morning, the first prayer. So though Balak and Bilam had the intention of trying to destroy our people, in the end, God has the final word and puts the words in the mouths of the people that you tried to destroy us, but turns out in the end, you're only going to help us. Any thoughts on that, Trudy, about your profession, about finding the need to find some time to study as well as in order to help people?
I think the whole point is to recharge yourself, because I think, well, first of all, I I deal just with children and their parents. I don't see adults. So kids are pretty active participants and you can't fake it with children. So I think, I mean, I look forward to going to services on Friday night because what kind of forces me to stop and take care of my own self. And that sounds rather selfish, but I think you need self-care sometimes before you can help other people. So, were you able to hear me okay?
I think you have the, I think it's all set, yeah. We were able to hear you fine. Thank you for that. So Deanne, how do you manage to find time for your studies and your conversion process, considering you have 3 kids that need you all the time?
With lots of prayer for him to show me where I can find the time. It's different than, it feels different than when I go to work or when I'm taking my classes for my master's, because it sometimes feels like it's just stuffed in there and I feel like I should be much more settled down and dedicated. But I found that a lot of times when I'm making dinner or a meal or something like that, I'll pop my earbuds in or I'll turn my tablet on and I'll listen to Audible to Jewish literacy. And as I'm learning, you know, poor Scott will come in and I'll be like, hey, did you know on chapter da 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 they said this and this and that, and I'll stir up this discussion that he didn't necessarily have time for, but then usually later on in the evening it pays off because then we'll kind of finish the discussion, you know, or we'll find some other time. And although I might have some guilt that it's not like secluded, dedicated time, I feel very fortunate in the long run because I had this great conversation with my husband, and it not only brought me closer to God, it brought me closer to my husband too, you know? So I got to take what I get, and that's pretty good.
I remember the Jewish part when we were in Brothers of Joseph, and the rabbi asked Scott, well, how's it gonna be? You know, your wife's not Jewish, how is she gonna take it? And the fact that you're both gonna be Jewish, once he said that, then they shut up. He said, well, it's not gonna be a problem, right, Scott? They say, well, it's hard, you know, one person chooses, it's not easy. Some people convert and their spouse doesn't, right? So, you know, it's hard in a household, but it's nice when you're unified, and when you have a question, you can always go to a spouse about it and discuss it. I think it's wonderful when you're both, you know, I've had situations in the past where, you know, some people have converted as a family and it was wonderful. But I told you the problem happens with this family that came every Friday night. This is something that I think we can learn from. I know, Scott, you're pretty immune to it though, but what happened, this family came every Friday night and they converted as a family. In the military yet, I won't even mention who it is, but in the military, they converted, they were great students, they were always coming to the services, and it just took one comment from one of our members that they're not really Jewish. I mean, Scott, was that, I mean, did they have to knock you off again because someone made that comment? That person should have never said it. But Scott, if someone said that to you, I don't think you would react like they did, right? The whole family decided never again to enter a synagogue. So.
No, you gotta, it sounds like there's more to that story on their end.
Yeah.
And I can't speak for them, but you know, maybe they were going through some other stressors, or you know, maybe it was tough for them. Maybe they were on the fence about continuing with it, and that was just the one thing to push them over the edge, because they were that close to not being able to continue on with it. But for whatever reason, we have a little bit thicker skin.
Well,
And I think you have to be, you have
to.
to have honest expectations about it too. You can't, I didn't come into the synagogue thinking, hey, look at me, I'm converting, everybody should welcome me with open arms. I came into the synagogue thinking, I'm an outsider, And this has to be very difficult for everybody else in the synagogue, thinking, who is this person and why is he coming in here? And, here we are 7 years down the road, maybe.
From your beginning, yeah.
Yeah, about 7 years down the road. And, I'm still just doing what I can.
Yeah, but Scott, the thing is, on Shavuos, we always say that, that King David stemmed from, Ruth, right? The Moabite, and converts. We have the King of the Messiah, who stems from conversion. So the holiday of Shavuos sort of, I thought would sort of solidify for people that converts should be welcome, especially during that holiday. I just don't understand why that person, if they were, Scott and Dan, if they were Orthodox, I can understand it. If someone was Orthodox and saying, hey, well, it happens to my own son-in-law, right? And he's the Chabad rabbi. His rabbi won't even call him up for the Leo. I mean, that I understand. That's what they believe. They don't like conversions to begin with, but if they have it, people know going in that they're not going to be counted if you go to Chabad. So the option is to go to a conservative synagogue, but if you choose to go to Chabad, that you know ahead of time how they're going to react, and not because they don't like them. That's the policy,
I can understand in a way. I mean, I don't know these people, and I only know the story from you, but I can picture someone who's taken the time and the energy to convert. And we know it's not an easy process, and there's a lot to learn. And now you go to the synagogue, and I don't know how you felt, but Scott and Deanne, but now you've converted, and you're going into a synagogue, and people are going to meet you, and you're maybe wondering what kind of a welcome you're going to get, and this couple did that, and somebody in this family did that, and then one day someone really invalidated to them all they had done, and I can see where that would, I'll use the calmest word I can think of, where that would irritate them.
Yeah.
And I
Like
can
that maybe they
completely
said-
empathize.
Yeah,
But-
maybe they don't feel welcome. Maybe they sense that from other people too.
You know what, Arlene, you're right there. I think these people, knowing them, they were very sensitive. But that was only one person's opinion. Everyone else welcomed them but it was one person that just made a stupid remark. I mean, it's as you say with Scott, that's only one person that made that remark. That wasn't a whole congregation. That was one out of 40 people that they saw over time. Only one person made a stupid remark about it. Everyone else was very welcoming, but it just takes in life, Arlene, just one stupid remark like that.
But did that person make that remark in front of other people?
Yes.
What an embarrassment. I think I'd be embarrassed. No matter how good I felt about what I had done, it's demeaning and it's embarrassing. I'm not saying it calls for leaving the synagogue, and you're probably right. There might have been other reasons, but I think I'm trying to put myself in a place I don't belong, which is a convert, because I've not done that process. But I would think it's very demeaning to hear that, and an embarrassment. You're embarrassed.
Rabbi, can I ask you something?
Yeah. Go ahead, Trudy. You're a therapist. No,
this is personal. So
Yeah.
my third child, was adopted, and they all three kids. And by the way, I had an Orthodox conversion for her, because at the time that who is a Jew question was big in Israel. Do you remember that back in the day? We're like, anyway, so I actually, Rabbi at Abramson at the time arranged this mikvah. We went to New Haven, and she went to the mikvah. She has her papers that she is, that she was converted. And right before her bat mitzvah at 12, the rabbi at Beth Jacob called her into the office and said to her, I have to ask you, because you were converted against your will, whether or not, wait, this is a little girl, whether you really want to be Jewish. Number one, she's studying for her bat mitzvah. She went to Hebrew day school. You know, she did everything. And she looked at him, and this was one of the reasons for my estrangement, and
Okay, well, that's understandable.
said to the rabbi, why would you ask me that now? And she came out in tears.
Oh, God.
And that's a child, you know, and that was and I mean, we did everything for her. She was raised exactly like my boys. And, you know, that was like really mean to do to a child.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
You know what?
she,
We have to watch what we say to kids. Us rabbis, I've seen people that have done some very bad with kids. You know, you got to be careful, especially with young kids.
right. And, you know, when you really think about it, we all come into this world born to a certain family at a certain time, at a certain place. We don't choose it, right? So
Right.
she could have,
That's one of the beliefs that I believe. Yeah.
right. Well, I mean, I believe she came to me for there's a very specific reason, you know, it's just, anyway, the fact being that how you can really say that to anybody is so unfair, because what family you come into, you know, the child doesn't choose. And is this typical for rabbis to ask before a bat or bar mitzvah to a child that's converted?
I have known rabbis that have done that. Believe me, I have known rabbis that have done that, Trudy.
But
It's not,
but
you know,
what,
but it's not many, but I do know ones that have actually asked that in my lifetime that I've encountered. Yeah, because people have come to me after they've lost faith in the rabbi that did that. But so that's how I know. But it's not
Yeah.
it's not usual, but I have heard of it happening.
well, let me tell you, it actually made her so angry after she was upset that she did a wonderful job. And, you know, she was like adamant and like, how dare he? And it didn't stop her. But you know, that's what I think really turns people off. And it was just really personally upsetting. Plus the fact that I felt really pressured at the time by all the area rabbis at the time, because the kids were at Hebrew day school, that, you know, you have to have an Orthodox conversion. You have to, blah, blah, blah. And you kind of like play by the rules. And then I just couldn't believe it, but I'm done.
But you know what, Trudy, I got to tell you one thing. Debbie's, my ex-wife's, married a Brazilian, and she wasn't Jewish, and she converted Orthodox through, you know, different conversations with a famous rabbi in Queens. And it was like one of these things where, you know, it's like a quickie type of thing. The wedding was beautiful. I was in a chateau in New Jersey. And since she got married, she doesn't keep anything anymore. She's in Brazil, doesn't even have a mezuzah on her door. Anyway, I went to a convention in 1996. My first year, I went with my stepfather to an OU conversion class at the hotel in the Renaissance, White Plains. At the hotel, the rabbis were talking about conversion. They said that it is the duty of an Orthodox rabbi that converts a person, that they're responsible to make sure that that person stays religious. I don't know how you can do it, but in this case, it happened. So I asked someone about this rabbi. He says, oh, he's a very famous rabbi. So he said, he's not obligated. He's not obligated. They said, once he's done it, he's done it. What do you think about that, Scott? He said, once he's done it, he's done it. I thought that's totally opposite of what I studied. If you have an Orthodox conversion, you're supposed to be involved. This guy had no involvement, and this was going on for 5 years now. They live in not even keeping kosher, or anything, but she had an Orthodox conversion. But what do you think of that? Rabbi
No,
really?
yeah,
Or
there's
Rabbi be responsible?
that's the same way it was with my ex-wife's Catholic pastor, and that he was her childhood pastor, and she wanted to get married in that church, and one of the things that his superiors made him do before marriages is you'd have to go through premarital counseling with him, and I could tell that he wanted to do a better job, but I think just from being in the area, being part of that culture, it was, and feeling the pressure from her family to just get it done, it in the end just became another one-off job for him, and he did it, and then he was hands off, never saw the guy, never heard from the guy again. And that's not right. That's, if you're going to bring somebody, there are certain life events, especially when a leader in a faith is involved, marriage, moving, change of job, right? The big three that really make the impacts in your life. And if the spiritual leader is involved in those, they should continue to be involved in those, right? At least in my opinion, because that's who we go to. That's who us lay people go to find the comfort and the direction to continue on in our lives in a moral and stalwart fashion. But there's definitely a lot of omni domni, ta-da, you're done. I think it's just become habit. I think it's become habit from all of the secular pressures that are put on certain people, and they just succumb to them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I got to tell you, it's a tough thing. I had a friend, a conservative rabbi in Massachusetts, that said he didn't want to get involved in it, but then at the end he had no choice. But he said it's just too messy for him, the whole thing. So he didn't want to get involved. But eventually he had no choice. So it's not an easy thing to be involved in. They're being responsible for people that you convert. But I don't mind you guys converting under me. It's good. It's a reflection on me that when you do well in life, that I feel good about it, and I say the same thing for my other conversions, and my bar mitzvah student, actually Byron, who's a Chabad rabbi in Middlebury, Vermont, that he studied under me for bar mitzvah, and he's a rabbi, so the only one that I ever had. So I'm proud of my students when they do well, and the people I converted also. But it's never easy in life. Decisions, what you have to do, and as I say, we always have forces that try to work against us sometimes. So we have to sort of rise above it. It's not easy in life. A lot of times there's so many forces that can knock you down. But I believe in success, we have to rise above it, and we have to really find a way to get closer to God. And as you said at the annual meeting, so we have to get more people. And a lot of people seem to be alienated from these days since COVID about group meetings and group activities. The thing is, I think after the post-COVID area that we're in now, I think it's up to us right now to find a way that we can feel comfortable with each other and bring out the best in each other and feel the energy of each other. Because I can tell you right now on Zoom, if you guys were here in front of me, it's a different situation. I'm sorry. It's got all the fairness of Zoom. There's certain things I can't do exercise classes on Zoom. I can't pick up the energy. Tai Chi classes to me are like practically worthless on Zoom. There's just a certain thing about, as you say, about energy of people coming together. You can't do everything on Zoom. I mean, it's a great thing that we have people in so many different states, 3 different states coming to our services. but it's not the same. I understand we have to do it for that reason, but for the people that live within a 10 to 15-minute commute, I'd love to see more people get their energy together and be as one as a congregation.
Yep, I agree. And
Okay,
I
guys.
think if we keep having successes like the second Seder,
Yeah,
then
we have to build on that. Yeah.
word's gonna get around and it's gonna be, it'll spread quickly, but we just have to keep our foot on the gas, like I was telling our new board members.
Yeah. You're right. That's what we have to have, create the excitement about it. Okay,
Yep.
guys, have a great night. It's good to see you for the 3 classes, for the last one, the Stevensons. Have a great evening, everyone, and
You
we're gonna-
too.
It's Friday night.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Trudy.
Take
Good
care.
night.